Okay, let's talk about the bottom nav here. The bottom nav is a native component. It is built in Jetpack Compose, but these tabs, which we click on here and so forth, are all powered by the configuration. So we have the local configuration and the remote configuration. The icon that we're going to use and the text we're going to use are all provided by the configuration. If we look in here, we'll see the tabs. This is just a rendered, flattened JSON version of tabs. This is the same thing that's up on the server. Now you could have different, but just an example. We take a look at the server, we see it's in Ruby code, which then at that point, these tabs are turned into JSON. The reason why the tabs are JSON and stringified is simply because the objects, the fields inside of the settings block cannot contain other objects inside of them. And that is an issue currently with Hotwire Native that's being currently worked on. So here you could change the name of your home path to something else. You could change what's new to something else. You can change the path of where it's going. So this is where you would change what's going to show up down here. And this will get rendered when the application loads. Now, you see here, there's a notification badge. So we can say, hey, do we want that notification badge to even be shown or not? And that will show a notification badge and so forth. And so we're having that set to true here. Now, if I wanted to change, to say, the notifications icon, what I would need to do is, let's just go ahead and I think announcement will actually be easier to find. Go to announcement. There we go. So now I was talking about notifications. If I wanted to change the notifications icon down here to a thumbs up, I have already included the material compose icon. So I can say thumb up right there. And if I rerun this, now when this loads, this will be a thumb up in the bottom right corner. So now I've changed the icon. So, however, if you send down from the server, let's say you added another tab in here to be something else, and that mapping is missing. Maybe you're doing a search icon. So you would actually maybe you have something in here that you want to be a search icon. If you do not have that mapping here, it will not show up at all. So if you've added another one here, you need to make sure the icon name is over here and matches to the one that you want. So how do you know what icons are available inside of this package? Well, you can do this and you can kind of scroll through them and view the preview here. So that's very helpful in Android Studio, but sometimes, I mean, there are a ton of icons in here. So, and I don't think it even includes all of them. It doesn't, it stops at display settings. It just keeps going. There's a lot of them. And so what you can do is you can go to the web, and at the material compose icons, there's a link here to go to the Google fonts, and that will take you here to fonts.google.com. And then we are looking at the icons for material. And so let's say for whatever reason we wanted to use the check, I would then know that there's a check one in there. I can say check, and there's our check. There's a whole different slew of, there's tons of icons you can see in here that are available that you can decide, hey, I would like to do something for code or updates or whatever you might have. You'll find an icon in here that works for your app. You'll need to make sure that you provide that mapping and so forth. All right, so we know where the tabs come from. They come from the configuration. They can be controlled from the configuration locally as well as remotely. So you can change the tab names remotely at any time and it will update the app in real time. And as long as there's a icon mapping, the icon can be updated as well. But if there's no icon mapping, it can't be updated. But you can update the text for sure. So where does this all get rendered? Let's take a look at the main activity. Inside the main activity, we have a couple of things that are going on. And the important area is inside the main activity view model. This is the view model that helps run and power the main activity. Inside of the main activity, what we do as soon as it gets initialized, this is basically like a constructor block, think of it that way. Upon initialization, we want to do something. And so we'll skip the notification stuff. And then what we do is we check the login state of the application. And at this point, the user's logged out. So we'll know that we're logged out. And then at this point, we can see if do we require a login? Well, then we're just going to hide the tabs by default because you shouldn't be able to see anything. However, if the log is not required, then let's go ahead and show those tabs. And then we're setting something here called nav tab state and providing some live data items. What are these things? Let's go to the top. First of all, what we have here is the nav items. And what we're doing is we're actually looking at the Jumpstart configuration and saying, hey, give me the bottom menu items. And that's from this Jumpstart configuration class. And if we look at the implementation of this, you can see what's happening here. We're taking JSON, we're decoding it from the string. Remember, because if we look back here on our website and also our local configuration, The remote and local configurations share that's a similar tab data structure, and it's stringified JSON. So we need to decode that from a string into this data class, which has these values. There's a title, there's a path, there's an icon, there's a show notification badge, and perhaps a count that might be used. And so we can see some of those similar values here, as well as up on the server here. Some of those are missing because we don't need to show a notification count until we have it. So we'll get the notification data, we render that, we go ahead and create a list of bottom navigation menu items. This is in the view model. So we get the list of navigation tab data. And so that's basically just a list of these objects here. I'm going to get a list of those. And then once we have them, we're going to use something called live data. Now, live data in Android is something that can be observed. It's data that can be changed that we can react to. So this provides observability built into it. And so we say, all right, there is some live data and it's based upon these items. So now anytime that data changes, any of the subscribers to that live data will then be notified. And so we have this live data items inside of here. Now, that will then render any additional updates to any other live data, etc. Now, what we have here is we also have this mutable live data. Mutable just means that we can change it. And this is the navigation tab state. And that means it can be in two different states. Down here we see there is a, scroll up here so we can get this out of, it's too hard to see if we can get this out of view. There we go. So here we could see that we have a show tabs and say, hey, when this is called, show these list of tabs, and otherwise hide tabs, which means just hide the tabs in general altogether. So that's going to be the navigation tab state. So what we do is we're going to get the nav items from the configuration. We're going to load it into some live data items that we can observe. And then at that point in time, we're going to pass those. That will be then provided to this navigation tab state. And so what we have here is the value nav tab state. We're going to show them based upon if you're logged in or you're not logged in. So down here is what's going to run when you first install the application. It's going to show the list of items. Now from here, how do we actually render this? So we've got the data, we know the tabs we want to load, we've got it put into a Kotlin data object. How do we get this into Compose? And so if we look at the navigation tab state, we can see where it's used. And we'll see that the value is red right here. And this provides basically an accessor to this data because nav tab state is private. We'll see navigation tab state, which means we can then subscribe to it. And if we look at where this is used in the main class, we could see all the way back up in the on create, after the view model's already been initialized, it's done what it's supposed to do, we're going to observe. We want to watch for changes of this tab state. So when it changes, when it says show tabs, cool, show the tabs with the value that's provided, and the tabs are just the ones that have been provided. Otherwise, hide them. And so we go to show tabs, and what show tabs does for us is automatically find the footer, and the footer is the Compose view that we have. From there, we're going to go ahead and set up a couple of things. We need the current path flow so we can see where we are, what path we are, so we can know which tab to highlight. That allows us to highlight which tab we're on. And then we set some delegate controllers just to update that current path here. Just say, hey, anytime the destination changes, update this current path here so we know that it's been changed. So anytime the nav controller changes location, let's update that new location so we can determine if we're going to highlight one of these tabs down here. And then we say footer, set content, and this allows us to set some Compose content inside of the footer. And then what we're gonna do is take the tabs and say, hey, these tabs right here, we would like to now observe them as state that can be used to render a Compose view. So there's lots of state and observability going on here. And same thing with the current path flow. So collect its value. So as it's rendering, collect the values from it as state that can be used to help update the state of a Compose view. And then if we have some tab items, we want to do something. And if it's greater than one, because if we have one tab, there's no point in showing it, right? So we're gonna, hey, use the default app theme and then show the bottom nav. And this is a Compose view. And we can look at the Compose view here. It's going to render. It's going to render a preview. This preview, I'm going to show you, scroll down at the bottom, is just rendering the Compose view here with some fake data so we can see what it looks like. But up here is exactly where everything happens. We create a nav bar, we provide the tabs, we do the long clicking, we work with a Hotwire activity delegate, which allows us to perform routing based upon a tab path, etc. And if for some reason it's null, we log it to logcat. And these logcat things end up down in our logcat output here. And then we have a composable for the nav bar itself. And then it does a navigation bar, which is actually part of the Compose toolkit itself. So we just say, hey, for each one of the tabs we have, just render another tab navigation item. And then we'll say, hey, is this thing selected? And all it is just a very simple thing saying, hey, is this value selected? Which is this code right here. And all it does is checks the path. Is it the same as the current path? If it is, cool, that means it's selected. And then go ahead and it'll show this item as selected. When it's clicked, it'll perform the tab click, which is this on tab click here. And then here's a tab item. And that's it. That's all it really does. It's actually pretty simple. There's a lot of layers of indirection though to get this going. So that is the confusing part. However, this is already built for you. You don't have to do anything to get this working. This already works out of the box for you. So the only thing that you really need to know is how to adjust your tab data inside of your local configuration, as well as your remote configuration that you have in Ruby. And that's how the navigation bar is powered by Jumpstart Pro and the path configuration data.